Hey everybody, welcome to the Grow Yourself podcast. I'm your host, Kevin McNulty, and this is your personal development school of growth, where each week my guests and I will bring and break down big ideas and practices that will help you learn, grow, and succeed in life. Thanks for checking us out. Now let the growth begin. Welcome everybody to another episode of Grow Yourself, your personal development school of growth. And listen, when I started this podcast a couple of years ago, my goal was to, and my purpose was to produce, things that help us learn, grow, change, improve in life. But I also reserve the right to bring people on who are just really interesting and, just had a fascinating life. Well, today I've got all of that. I've got someone who's going to share some wisdom with us, but I have to say it, and I'm going to put it straight. I've got a star in my presence. It's an actor whose career has frankly taken him from blockbuster films like Pretty Woman, Catch Me If You Can, Indiana Jones, and The Last Crusade. He's also been on great television shows such as Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story, This Is Us, Babylon 5. And by the way, for all my soap opera friends, he's appeared on General Hospital. And to my wife, Jane, she's going to flip out. He was a guest on Murder, She Wrote, which is one of her absolute favorite shows. Not only is he a legend in his own right, he's also shared the screen with many other legends like Julia Roberts, Richard Gere, Harrison Ford, Tom Hanks. He's also worked under truly celebrated directors, including Steven Spielberg, Gary Marshall, Robert Zemeckis, if I get that right. And over the decades, he's built truly a body of work that spans genres and generations. But listen, and here's the truth. This stardom wasn't just handed to him. It's a result of persistence, reinvention, an unshakable love for storytelling, hard work, and all of the things that we all know takes to be at this level of success. So many know him from the original Reed Richards, from a movie, The Fantastic Four in 1994, that was never actually released, and it was a role, that kind of became part of Hollywood folklore in a sense. However, now, more than 30 years later, he's back in Marvel's blockbuster Fantastic Four First Steps, giving fans a moment they've waited for decades to see. And, and he's created a journey that hasn't stopped just at acting, by the way. It's taken him from the big screen to launching his own audiobook studio, making Alex Hyde-White's career a masterclass, frankly, in navigating the long game of creative life. So it is just my absolute pleasure now to have Alex Hyde-White with me. Alex, my goodness gracious, pardon me for sounding like a middle school gusher, but I'm so pleased to have you.
Kevin, thank you. How lovely. I think, is that really me? I guess. Yeah, that is. I mean, yeah, you've inspired me. Thank you. What a lovely intro.
Well, listen, not only did I do my research, but listen, I've been part of various worlds, and I followed Hollywood and entertainment and all of that to know that it is not for the faint of heart. And for somebody to be around and do so much great work for so long, you're a legend, my friend, and I just commend you for all of the work that you've done. But listen, before we get started, would you mind just sharing with our audience a little bit about you, your upbringing, maybe where you're from, any of that? Who is Alex? Who is Alex Hyde-White?
Well, I'm a sophisticated desert rat. I was born into a theatrical family. My dad was 56 years old when I was born. And, he'd say things like, I have children every 30 years, which is funny and a very, self-centered, which on the face of it probably has a negative connotation. But as you hit on in your intro, there is an omnipotence necessary for a creative to survive, let alone succeed.
Yeah.
And then it's filtered through your relationships with the world, with others, which ultimately I think probably is a reflection of how you see yourself. So how do you get to a point where everything is squared, where you're allowed, or you give yourself, you allow yourself to discover yourself at the behest of or influenced by who you're supposed to be or where you came from? And I only say that because I came from a very narrow path of actor, leader, influence, and grew up in a world here in the desert, which, even though it was a satellite, I'm here visiting Palm Desert on a bit of a vacation because I still love it down here. It doesn't feel like it feels like my home geographically and physically, but not emotionally, in the sense that I'm dragged down by it. But it started for me when I was very young, from London, enjoying early memories of London in the 60s. And then my dad started working here in the big movie was My Fair Lady, which was which played Colonel Pickering. And so I grew up with an elderly father in a community that was very working class in terms of these were real people who lived here. So I wasn't burdened with the pretensions of that narrow path that I perhaps would have been had I stayed in England as a fairly famous actor's son. Here, I could live a life, and I learned the joys of Little League baseball and just, driving a car in the desert. It was just, it was so freeing. And so I grew up just with this feeling that anything was possible. And I'm very fortunate that way. I'm not so sure that comes as easily as it came to me, to kids these days. It seems like there's so much sort of self-segregation going on in the world. And then you combine that with the proliferation of entertainment content that is out there. And people think that I'm going to become an actor is like I'm going to go to work at, Ralph's supermarket. I'm going to get a job and become an actor. Yeah. It's such a emotional gamble. And so all this, I suppose what I'm saying is all this sort of gypsy-like, and I hope that's okay to say, but when I mean gypsy, I mean part of a tribe of wanderers, which actors have always been. That ended up being a great benefit to me because, I wasn't in search of permanence. I was just in search of finding moments that inspired, which is exactly what an acting career ended up being. And so my upbringing combined with my environment, I was very fortunate because I was able to withstand, the normal traumas of having elderly dad and, a stage manager mother who needed things a certain way. Always, God bless her, and it's wonderful. I just think that, a lot of actors, when they talk about their lives, they will talk about this dysfunction, or they'll talk about their square peg in a round hole kind of world. It's the well-adjusted that we have to be. Whoops, I'm so sorry. No, it's the well-adjusted that we have to be wary of. So yeah, I think that I really owe it to my environment, where I came from. Of course, I was a satellite of Hollywood, and so for me to be influenced by Hollywood, and I would accompany my dad in later years on film sets, wonderful shows like Columbo. I found that that's where I belonged. And had I stayed, had I stayed in England, I might have gone this sort of more conventional drama school, son of a famous actor.
I see.
And my path would have been equally narrow, and I'm not so sure as satisfying.
But let me ask this, because, and I'm making an assumption here, though, that you weren't raised strictly in Hollywood, but outside of it, and therefore, what I hear you describing is a little bit more of a normalized life. I mean,
yes,
listen,
so.
I mean, there are, I don't even think it's a slight to say that many young people that grow up in Hollywood, under Hollywood actors and within Hollywood,
Mm-hmm.
they struggle in life.
Yeah, even when I was younger. Yeah, fortunate that I wasn't part of that. You
Right.
you get confused as I think as a parent that you suddenly need to, because of, it's almost like ancient Rome, the elite class, or the
Hmm. Yeah.
that they must segregate themselves. They must go to the private schools. They must network with the right people. And the great trap is it's who you know. And so you end up got to be careful about bringing up kids in that environment. It isn't who you know, it's what you know and and how you are. And the only way you can integrate well is if you have some sort of personal confidence, which is based on knowledge and experience. So, we're fortunate. We have my lovely wife, Shelley, and I have a 24-year-old son who went through the public school system in Santa Monica
Oh,
and,
that's so good.
and fortunately got out in 2019 before, the school system, this county, the state, half the world just turned upside down.
Hmm.
Very lucky there. But I was raised here in Palm Springs in the public schools, and I was a bright kid, and we had these lovely teachers. I must have either annoyed them or made them very proud, but they made sure I rushed through school, and I graduated Palm Springs High School when I was age 16, which, is fairly rare. I don't think you would do
Yeah.
that to a child right now. Why force, the big bad world on them? Let them, mature a little more. But again, that put me on a path of sort of needing to accomplish. And it was fueled with a desire to learn and experience, because I hadn't really learned and experienced much. I enjoyed it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Kind of like
So,
Peter Jennings. I remember the great Peter Jennings once
oh
said
yeah.
that he owed his career to dropping out of college because it left him with an insatiable appetite and a curiosity to learn, understand, and ultimately translate, report.
So did you, let's say when you graduated, actually before I go there, I want to just maybe go back a little bit more and just ask you about your parents, sort of how, you know, not maybe not even as much about the relationship, about your mother and father. Just
Yeah.
who were they? I'm interested to know.
Well, Dad was an older man, very set in his ways, but very gregarious. But
Mm,
rather like his one of his best friends, who I was influenced by, was the great Peter Sellers, who was a chameleon of an
mm,
actor.
great.
And the thing about Peter is he was a chameleon of a person as well,
Mm,
and that's why he was probably married 6 times and had 8 heart attacks. And by the time of his fairly early death, literally died of a broken heart. He just had a hard time
okay.
squaring his experience. Yeah, very hard. And his channel, his way out, was to leave these indelible impressions on people, from the silliness of the
I
Pink
see.
Panther to the laser-like focus of Chauncey Gardner in being there.
Wow.
And which I remember my dad and I went to see that film, and he was very, very happy for Peter, very proud of Peter, because he did something that just appeared effortless.
Mm,
And my dad had that. He had that ability on stage to appear effortless. It was based on his need to dominate the scene. He was a great actor manager in an era where actors really weren't managing anymore, in the same
I
sort of
see.
way that Olivier was earlier on. But Olivier, being a classicist, he went that route of national theater and became, the icon that he did. My
Yeah.
dad was a light comedian who was very adept at handling improvisation. If the scenery would fall down or a prop wasn't there, he'd immediately make it a moment for the audience to never forget. And to have a give and take with nature is a rare, rare gift that Peter had. And I also experienced and understood, and in my own way, last 10, 15 years of his life was tried to help him through it. He had this sort of inner
This what? Say
void.
that again. Okay.
He had an inner
Gotcha.
void. He sort of
Yeah.
had what Churchill would refer to as the black dog, which was depression, and it was difficult, and it became difficult, dynamic in the home, and so there was a family breakup in that sort of very very tender time of early adolescence that affected my sister and me, but not until later years, like this stuff, right? You
Get it.
live through it all. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
you go through a dirty puddle, and then eight months later you
Mhm.
find out that it was poison, and it's now starting to hurt you. That's that kind of thing, right?
Very interesting.
But you see, that's the price that when I refer to casually as at the tribal life, that's the price sometimes to pay for creative fulfillment, or for the energy that manifests itself in something that the world looks at as being a gift. It's a gift and a curse, like most things. And
Like most things.
and it's just nature,
Yeah.
And the way you handle the curse might also help you bearing the weight of the gift. You know what I mean?
Yeah. 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 Tell
And
me
what about?
again, Alex, about your mother. I want to hear
Yes.
about your mother.
Well, my mom was a stage manager. She was 29 years younger than my dad, and
Mm.
her prime fun time in New York, I think, was her mid-20s. She was a page at NBC, like so many people, and
Mm.
enjoyed being in the business. And New York, raised in New York, she was the daughter of a sound man who worked in CBS News and whatnot. Who was my grandfather, who I got to know very well later in life, because they retired up to Yucca Valley, which was a little desert hamlet north of Palm Springs, and wonderful memories.
Mm.
But it was a family of eccentrics. Eccentricity is not the sole proprietorship of creatives. My
Fair
lord.
enough.
And sometimes when we live in this bubble, or when I experience times in the bubble, we think that we own all of these experiences. And so
Right.
it's great. It's great to be out in the world,
Right.
especially these days, to say, oh my gosh, there's a lot of nuts out here. We're going to do fine. And so it sort of just levels some of the ups and downs that we
Yeah.
suddenly, if we're not succeeding. Anyway, my mom sort of suffered, I think, a little bit from this, that it was, if you didn't succeeding, you were losing.
Oh my.
And it's like, imagine being a batting champion of Major League Baseball. You're lucky you get 3 hits out of every 10 at bats. So, to be influenced in a primal way, to turn that statistic into a losing one, you think, okay, well, you know what? I'm just going to give up batting. And then other people, what are you doing? You're one of the best in the league. Well, yeah, but
Oh
my mother didn't
yeah.
think I was good
Yeah.
enough.
Wow.
Okay. Whoa,
Wow.
whoa. And that
Wow.
happens, that happens. So, and it was an interesting dichotomy, because during moments, especially when I was starting out, as a teenager, I did a couple of plays in Palm Springs, which was easy to do because there was a vibrant theater community, amateur theater, neighborhood theater. It was a lot of fun. But I didn't. I'm like, oh, I'm not going to be a theater. I didn't want to do that. I hadn't. I knew what that was as a kid and enjoyed it. But
That's another world as well,
yeah,
right? I mean, just
no,
another
no, I
universe.
didn't. No, I really didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
But I knew I could.
Okay.
But I was influenced by wonderful television and films of the 70s. I mean,
Right.
shows like Starsky and Hutch were
Here,
considered
here.
good TV. I mean,
That's
come
right.
on, how can that not
100%.
be? I remember saying to my dad, after going to Dirty Harry, I was still in high school, I think, and I said, Clint Eastwood's going to win an Oscar for that film. And he said, no, that's not the kind of film. I go, but how? You can't make a better film than Dirty Harry. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That kind of thing,
100%.
right? And so that's what I wanted to do. That's what I want to do. And so um, the dichotomy about sort of my stage manager's mother's influence, she prepared me. For the occasional bits of success that thankfully later would come, but she didn't really prepare me to handle the failure. you
Interesting.
know it
Got it.
was there was a shade to it. There was a sort of prejudicial acceptances, and it was things like, well, are you thinking about doing something else? And yeah, yes, all the time. But I graduated high school at 16. I was a college dropout. What am I going to do, sell real estate? And I actually did that for a year, which
Wow.
is the bloody same thing as acting. It's only
I,
more
I suppose. Yeah.
it's more predatory.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's just predatory.
Yeah.
And
I get it. Yeah.
fortunately, um, I think leaving home early was a blessing.
Yeah.
You
That's a
know,
perfect segue. So, okay. So you graduated high school early, which again could be a blessing and a
yeah,
curse.
yeah.
However, so, you know, you went into real estate, but at what point did was it
Just
like a
fear.
decision that you made to go back into Hollywood, or did you just sort of fold into it? How did that happen?
There's an opportunity.
Okay.
And, you get, it's like the Eminem song, opportunity knocks.
Yeah.
You got to make the most of it,
Yeah.
which is one of the most terrifying
Yeah.
instructions you'll ever get. I mean,
Yeah.
imagine you're somebody calling you up, like your parent. Okay, you got a chance now. You better,
Yeah.
you better
Don't
do
screw
it.
it up.
What?
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to come back and work in my tire store. Oh God. Which was a friend of mine here in Palm Springs, is why I say that. Um, so opportunity, and it came through my dad. God bless him.
Mm.
Um, I was up in the high desert uh, selling sand, selling real estate for a year. And then that's you have to take a test and pass a test, and then you sit at a desk and it was okay, but it wasn't hard. But the world was not an expensive world out in the desert. Okay, make it, no worries. And he called me up. He said, I'm going to Universal Studios next week for 2 weeks to shoot a pilot of some bloody awful science fiction show. And my man, because he had a man, of course, an assistant, Mike, he's working with Peter on Columbo, because he was, Columbo had first call. He said, do you want to come to Universal?
That was a great show. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. And so I said, hell yeah, come on. And I went to Dwayne Cool, the real estate broker. And thankfully, real estate is not a salaried position when you're, what was I, 19 years old.
Wow.
And I said to him, hey, I think I'm going to go to LA for a couple of weeks. And he said to me, okay, it's been fun having you, but you're going to do okay. And I went down because, I was nice. I was
Yeah.
fun, and I was
Sure.
a
Of
good looking
course.
boy. And
Of course.
Universal was looking for boys, for nice, good looking boys to fly jets in space, because they thought they had a 7-year hit. And they took one look at me, and my dad was with Ray Milland drinking, they called it, tea out of a styrofoam cup at around 12 o'clock. Two old boys sitting doing their bits and having
Hmm.
fun. And the casting director called me up. The agent called my dad's agent. Hey, Punch, my middle name, Punch. They want to see you down. So I walked down, casting director. They handed me a script for the second episode of Battlestar Galactica, play some fighter pilot. And I read it. I could take this, go out and come back in. I read it. And it leads off, it's like episode 2 in my book of this, just the best audition I've ever given, because I read this thing. And Star Wars, I wanted to fly jets in space, and this was the scene: jets in space. Be careful over here. Oh no, look out! Oh no, whatever you need to do, you hit the beats. And the casting director and the director, Alan Levy, looked at one another, and they looked at me and said, "You've never done this before?" I go, "Well,
Interesting.
no, I never really have. But I've spent the last 15 minutes ad nauseum explaining the sort of the shrouded energy around me.
Exactly.
I'd grown up
Yes.
in space. I mean, looking for the
Interesting.
moments, looking and reacting for the moments of danger.
Hmm.
And they said, and the very next thing they said, do you know about our new talent development program? And I go, sounds okay. No. And he says, well, basically it's a contract. Hold on a minute. And like a week later, I had an audition with the people who ran it. And of course, this is where my mom, I'm talking about, there was a scene from a lovely play that my dad had done on summer tour, and like 2-3 years ago, I'd been in England for the summer wherever he was touring it, and I knew this play backwards. And there's a scene called Not in the Book, where the young author comes in at the end of Act One, and it's a bit of a surprise. Oh dear, what are you doing? Well, sir, I thought I'd come back. Well, why are you here? My plane was grounded by fog, sort of like some stupid thing. And we did the scene for the Universal casting, the heads of Universal. And of course, my dad went up on the first cue, and my mom had rehearsed us very thoroughly. And then Dad had the first line, and she said, all right, shall we start? And then I'm waiting, and Dad doesn't give the first cue. And so I basically transposed it. Sir, you were asking me something rather. And, oh, yeah, okay. And I'm sure he did it on purpose,
That's
because
crazy.
I'm sure he did it on purpose. And at the end, they said, I don't know what we can do about your father, but I think we can give you a job. It's exactly what they said.
Let me, I can't help but to jump in. The personal growth side of me is coming out here. I'm thinking about this. When you talked about, so when you just stepped into that role of auditioning, even though you hadn't done it before, it just was a natural thing for you, right? And part of that is what you just said, is you're raised in that environment and it just all, it just all, it's like osmosis. It just goes into your being, right? And to me, that's a very important uh, principle that I think parents need to understand, be it good or bad, that your kids are absorbing
Yeah.
you. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's going to be a situation probably fairly early in life where the kid is going to thrive. And
Okay.
it can be in midnight for a drug deal gone bad,
Oh,
and he's
wow.
the guy who survives it. Or it can be the Eminem shot at fame, and he
Mm,
survives it. And that moment, whether they succeed or not, the survival of that moment will galvanize them. It's sort of like what John Kennedy probably referred to as tempered by war, in that wonderful
interesting.
speech, a new generation tempered
Mm,
by war. And
hmm.
look at, I mean, we have been spoiled by peace in a sort of a theoretical way in the Western world,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's taken tragic events globally and locally for us to begin to hold a mirror up to what the hell's going on. There's such a separation
Hmm.
in existence right now that it's almost you want to be a tribe, you want
Mm,
to be separate, and so that's no longer, or maybe it never really was the curse or the danger it was supposed to be. But I found myself, yes, in a situation. The stars aligned. It was fortunate. I was ready
hmm.
for it. I was ready for it, and it was ready for
Hmm.
me.
Mm,
And that goes
yeah.
back to earlier, this sort of desire
Mm,
when you're wealthy or like the Roman elites that my children are different.
mm,
And no, they're not. Their
mm.
their difference is going to be based on their ability to integrate
Interesting.
in a wide range of people and environments, which in and of itself will make them different because a lot of
Yeah.
people are afraid of that.
Yeah, that brings me to this idea about, at least as we stereotypically think about actors and being in Hollywood, that there's a sort of a plastic piece that comes into play. And I guess my thought or my question is that how do you be true to yourself, who you are, and develop your virtues and your goodness, but at the same time, you have to some degree, or many have to feel like yes, we're special, and therefore it's who you know, and you
Mm-hmm.
and I think, I don't know, some actors go down this road where they just think more of themselves than they probably should.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I don't know that. I'm asking the
Yeah.
question. How do you stay true to, because you honestly, speaking with you right now, and even I've watched some of your interviews, honestly, you come across as very grounded and very normal, not full
Well,
of yourself.
thank
But
you.
but but at the same time, you have to exude some confidence and something. So I'm trying to figure out why some folks go off the rails and why folks stay balanced as it appears that you are.
Well, it's very difficult when you're young.
Fair enough.
Um, you so if you so crave success, acceptance,
Mm,
it boils down to one thing, and that's where talent is the ability to get work. Okay, so
mm,
what do I need to do to get work? Okay,
okay.
that's where various genres of the film industry, to put it gently, come in. Low budget, dangerous, adult, commercial, whatever. There are many
Mm,
streams, and there's a madness associated with some of them when they can lead you down a path of degeneration in a way, and then you sort of say, but at least I'm succeeding, okay,
mm, mm,
and
mm. Okay.
you're not proud of it,
Mm.
and so you end up being bitter. And it's so easy. I've known a few good friends through the years be corrupted by the success that they spent most of their life
Oh,
desiring,
what a paradox. I
you
mean,
know?
goodness
And it's
gracious.
simply because, in a couple of instances that I can think of, they didn't want to share it.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting. I would
yeah.
have never heard that
Well, I
coming.
mean, in a Howard Hughes sort of way,
Hmm.
in a way,
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, uh, uh, and I suppose I appear and I feel more grounded now because I don't find myself in situations where I'm challenged that much in terms of having to prove myself. I've always played big parts in small movies and small parts in big movies. And I love the small parts in big movies for obvious reasons because I'm more appreciated,
Fair enough. Yeah, 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 yeah.
But the small parts in the big movies have been the sort of the peaks where a mountaineer. Those have been the peaks that resonate with the audience and that mean something to me. And then I based my personal reflection when I wrote my book on the sort of the seven summits of my life. And to take the analogy further, but I also understood and I wanted to tell the story of what it meant to be that mountaineer, trial and error, emphasizing the error, and not being afraid or to shy away from those relatively desperate times, while fully understanding that for me to cry foul and the old woe is me is a great misuse of the inherent power in celluloid or the inherent power in television. It's just almost like this in our I say digital, but in our pop culture way, we're immortal for the simple reason that these visuals are always out there more than ever. You want to look up an episode of Murder She Wrote, you'll find it in 20 seconds, and there's me.
Yeah,
Or a Pretty Woman, and you just turn on a TV and that movie's on.
that's
So
correct. That's true.
so that is a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing for a young fella who needed to find a place to be, to at the end of it, and not God bless and hope, not the end of it, but I'm very
Right.
well aware now that I am in a real, literal, non-ego way. I'm going to live forever as long as those images
Very
are
interesting. Yeah.
around.
Yeah. You've
You
established
know?
a legacy, haven't you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a legacy of. I really don't know. It's not really a legacy of someone who never gave up or never stopped trying. I think it's a legacy of someone who just appreciated what I have now. But I spent the first 20 years of my career just feeling that, man, I needed more.
Okay.
It wasn't enough. And
Okay.
and I got tired of that. I stopped chasing fame.
Oh,
And literally, I mean, it just left Hollywood, which is not a hard thing to do. Most actors, reach a point where they do, unless, of course, they're tied to that narrow channel of the entertainment industry that lives and only lives on the soap opera lot at
yeah.
ABC or
Yeah.
the adult film
Yeah.
in what's left of it in chapter. Who
Yeah.
knows? I don't want to
Yeah.
disparage any of
Yeah.
that.
Understand.
And that's when you see people promote. I'm very wary when I see people promote themselves now on social media of entertaining. Again, the English actor in me, I mean, we don't talk about. I mean, we're happy to say that we're part of a company or a film's coming out, but we don't say things like, "Oh man, it was so great. They had halibut on the set today of so and so." It's like I'm working, I'm working. Okay, I know you're working. What's the alternative? You know, I mean, good. It's annoying.
Yeah.
And, then you become overexposed. Nobody
Yeah.
wants to, and it's too much. You got to have this sense of mystery because most of the time we're confused about, the Fantastic Four First Steps that came to me just recently in a very magnanimous way. There was no clue to what I was going to do
I
in
see.
that film. And that was a reward for something that I'd done 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And so that was a great example of being prepared for the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, I think, a very, very important principle in life as well. I do coaching, executive coaching, this kind of stuff, but leadership
Good.
coaching. But what I want to say is that oftentimes I coach folks that are in smaller companies where the opportunity for growth are much less. And so I always preach this. Okay, you're in a good company, you love the company, you don't want to leave, but there's no growth potential there. So
Hmm.
now what?
Yeah.
And they like, yeah, I don't know, somebody has to die before a position opens up. And I say, okay, but when that position opens up, are you ready?
Yeah.
Are you ready for it?
Yeah.
And this is and of course that's what you're talking about is the whole mindset of being ready for the moment when it presents itself.
Hmm.
I think that's,
And you don't know what that moment
and
is actually going to be.
you don't, you really don't. So you have to then be able to do those things that
Hmm.
may be tedious, but very important to that next step, such as
Hmm.
training or practicing or whatever it is, out there pitching yourself, whatever you have to do to be ready for that moment. Because you're right, that what you talked about with your first role there seemed rather unexpected.
Yeah, unexpected yet not surprising in a way, you know?
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because you are already in that.
Just, I was looking for
Mm,
something. I mean,
yeah.
uh,
Mm,
maybe something else would have happened, but I was
yeah.
just
Yeah.
I was ready. And it was just
Yeah.
the environment was
Yeah.
ready for me as well.
I want to ask you about this, Alex. I remember have you heard of George Jones, country artist?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, I don't listen to a lot of country, but I know that he was just like the grandfather of country or something like this, or the father of country. Well, when he passed away several years ago, it may have been 10 years. I might have that wrong, but apparently Tanya Tucker, who was also
Yeah.
a very famous, she was on a radio show talking about George Jones. He had just died, and she said, yeah, George used to call me up every now and then. And this is in his latter years, and he'd open up just like this. He'd say, Tanya, um, I'm not feeling very good about myself. I think I'm gonna have to go out in public and build up my self-esteem.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
was just a
Yeah.
terrific role. And he
Yeah.
kind of said
Yeah.
it in jest,
Yeah.
but the idea was that if you really think through that, that's sometimes where people do get their self-esteem is. And
Yeah.
again, I'm not even poo-pooing that idea. I think if you're a star like you are, George Jones, or something else, that
Oh,
you get used to I mean, people, listen, when Betsy reached out to me, I mean, it took me about, a nanosecond to say, hell yeah, I
no,
want to
good.
interview him.
Good.
Well, because we appreciate, well, again, I've been a part of the industry, entertainment industry, is just to know that it's not easy and it's hard work. And so I have that appreciation as well. But I guess my point is that again, being grounded, how do you keep yourself grounded and maybe with less of a need to go out and tell people what you've done in your life?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
It's a good question. Um, there's a silly story I think about an as a character, Stuart Granger, I think was his name. He was called in for a meeting at the executive at Universal, and he walks in as a young fella, and he says, "Yeah, Mr. Granger, okay, good. They wanted me to meet you. Tell me, what have you done lately?" And
mm,
he said nothing. It smelled like that when I walked in here.
okay.
So there's the answer to
That's
that.
too good, man.
I
I
mean,
love that.
it's arrogant, it's
Yeah.
disqualifying, but it
Yeah.
also might be fuck. Exactly, you're
That's
exactly
right.
what we're looking for,
Exactly.
sir. Come
That's
on,
right.
can you go to the
Yeah.
wardrobe? Okay,
Yeah.
and there is this pretend. You got to pretend you don't care, and that was
Mhm.
hard for me as a youngster because
Interesting.
I was looking for a place to fit, you know, and trying too hard comes off.
Interesting. Kind
I
of like
said,
you need me more than I need you type of an
well,
attitude.
yeah, but yeah, in a way, because I think that, especially I find with independent film, that the creatives are usually pretty confident about what they want and what they need because they've been through the pre-production process, they've been through the financing,
Mhm.
and by the time they get to me, I walk into the room and there's two people, maybe three people, and it's a pretty simple task. Here's the material, and here we are. Let's spend as long or as little as we need to see if this works.
Yeah.
And it's a two-sided equation. It's not one person trying to gain acceptance. It's not them making sure that they're making the right choice. It's when the flag
Mm.
drops, when the light's on, when that moment starts,
Mm.
does it work? And it's
Does it
simply
work?
that.
That's interesting.
And because there's not really a foundation to that kind of experience, it's based a lot on a hit and hope philosophy. Okay, so
Interesting.
if you go in at least owning yourself, either in that personal kind of arrogant dismissive way or simply by showing your respect for their material, thereby your respect for them and their project, then if they think you're right for it, you have established a wonderful foundation for a working relationship.
Very interesting.
You know, there was a throwback to Francis Coppola from the AFI, honoring Francis Ford Coppola a couple of weeks ago on TV.
Wow.
And I find those shows almost there's so many of them. I basically run away from them. Only recently started watching the Oscars again, but I was there long enough to see Harrison Ford and Pacino and De Niro thanking Coppola for giving them their starts, basically, where in actuality, I think Roger Corman had a lot to do with some of them as well. But they showed a clip of De Niro, and he was auditioning for Sonny Corleone for The Godfather. And the voiceover from Coppola while they were showing it was that, I didn't think he was right for Sonny, but 3 or 4 years later, when it was The Godfather 2, I thought he was right for Vito.
Unbelievable.
And Robert De Niro thanked him as much as he wanted the part of Sonny in The Godfather. He thanked him for not giving it to him, because Vito Corleone Jr. in Godfather 2, and Jr. as a younger man, made him Robert De Niro.
And if the producer or director was correct about it, or casting whoever it was, if they'd not went with their hunch, it could have been the wrong role for him and actually impacted him in a negative way, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, I mean, you couldn't not have James Caan in that part. But when you look at it, James Caan didn't fit the sort of the ethnic profile of the Corleone family.
Agree. Yeah.
But you couldn't. But he'd had a big hit with the Brian Song TV movie, and he was such a dynamic presence, and he was probably someone in the course of that story that, even though you couldn't stand his arrogance, when he was shot up in the toll booth, it hit you like a ton of bricks. Because you cared so much about him, you know?
Interesting.
And that was a wonderful film, wonderful film.
100%.
And there's another episode in my book, I call my chapters episodes, and there's 5 acts, like, classical theater structure named after 5 movies that I found most influential in my life, like Star Wars and Patriot Games and Last of the Mohicans and Heat.
Interesting.
And things like that. And I framed my recollections in the context of show business parlance. And, there's an episode called Not the Godfather. And it's about, the parlor game we all play is we sit around saying, okay, when you're sitting at the bus station or you're in a rain delay somewhere, you go, okay, come on, what's your favorite movie? And then somebody says, Not the Godfather, because The Godfather's everybody's favorite movie.
Wow.
It's got to be something else.
Wow.
Yeah.
Alex,
so what a story. I think that just speaks to the perils of casting is you cannot attach yourself to a specific outcome, yet your first 20 years of your career, you are attaching yourself to every specific outcome. And I sort of had this survival mechanism of, I've never given a bad audition. I walked out of those rooms with very few exceptions thinking, man, I did a good job.
How interesting.
And I'm probably clueless for half of them. I remember another little story I'd tell is my agents called me up once, and casting director who we knew quite well, and we'd done plenty of work for in the past. They called me up and said, listen, they want to see you for this part, but, they said something rather interesting. They said, we'll see Alex, but, the thing with Alex is he's either like very good in the room or just a little bit off. And I said, okay, which would they prefer this time? I mean, come on.
Very funny.
Yeah.
Wow. Alex, I'd love to just maybe talk about, you've appeared in so many shows and movies that we couldn't get through all of them, but I would love to just maybe take you from the beginning of those and just pick out the ones that stand out to you, and just hear a little bit about it, just something, and maybe let me ask questions about some of them or something like that, if you wouldn't mind, please.
Well, there were a couple of, there were, after my contract player days, which of course ended 2 years later in the big actors strike of 1981, where Ed Asner took us out on strike for fear that the video the video revolution was going to hurt actors. And so, okay, it ended up
He wasn't
saving
Nostradamus,
him.
was he? Yeah.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right.
And it happened again, a year and a half ago with AI. We didn't go on strike for AI. We went strike because the environment was so militant. And after COVID, to shut down Hollywood, next year for 6 months, it destroyed so much.
That's crazy.
I read these articles about prop houses and Griffin Electrics and all of these, for every people above the line on a movie call sheet, which is where the creatives, you're called above the line, below the line is 3 or 4 times as much. And those are the people who work 16-hour days. And, the impact on the crew with the arrogance of the cast was just, I couldn't believe it. Anyway, so I know there was a question there somewhere. So I got lucky early on after the actor strike. That's what it was. Went to New York, got in a play, got a William Morris agent called up, and found myself, a young actor represented by a good agency. It didn't really mean much in LA. I mean, it was fine. But because of my English citizenship, I found myself in England when I was about 23. And I picked up a job because, you see, that was still, it wasn't really free to work. You needed a work permit and citizenship, bypass that. And the production companies couldn't really hire American actors and all that bit. It was just, there was a regulation, which I was fortunate because I was half English, that I was a British citizen. So I picked up a lovely job in the first Olympics, playing a Harvard runner in the 1896 recreation of the first modern Olympics, which filmed at Pinewood Studios and then at the Panathinaikos Stadium in Athens and locations around there. And I played a middle distance runner named Skip Blake, and it was a mini series to sort of coincide with the LA Olympics of '84. And that was my first main cast job. David Caruso, Hunt Block, Jason Connery, Matt Frewer, some wonderful guys. We remained friendly for years. But that was, and I remember Caruso said, this is the best job we're ever going to have. And boy, he had a few since. But in many ways, he was right, because that was the platoon of boys going out, sort of, getting seasoned in that sense, in personal development. So that was wonderful. That was fun. And it was a great experience. And, it was a vacation. I mean, come on.
Yeah, man.
And it was just gorgeous and fun. I go, okay, I can do this. I can do. And so I had that experience. And then a couple of years later in England, I picked up a couple of leads in indie movies. One was a time travel, silly little film called Biggles Adventures in Time. He was a World War I Sopwith camel pilot, kind of like Dudley Do Right was to the Canadian Mounties. Lives in folklore of a bunch of series of books about Biggles. The Monty Python made him famous for Biggles Flies Undone kind of thing. Stupid. But,
I love time travel movies.
Yeah. That was fun. It was, and I played the Back to the Future modern day American who basically goes and ruins everyone's life and ended up kind of ruined in the movie because it was a stupid plot convention.
Okay.
So, there was a great experience of, oh my God, this movie might make me, a star. And then it came out. And I remember my agent, the William Morris agent, called and said, I just saw Biggles. I go, what do you think? She goes, I think it was the wrong director. It's a really lovely way of saying
it sucked. Yeah.
But nowadays it wouldn't matter so much. You see, I was saying this the other day to someone. People are much more forgiving of actors because there's a celebrity, more of a celebrity value. Are they valuable because of another reason? But at the time, that was rather self-defeating. Well, not so much self-defeating. It was defeating. So I basically left England. And like I said earlier in the beginning, had I stayed there, it would have been a narrow lane of a different sort. And I don't think it would have been as fulfilling. So that was like drama school for me, finishing school. Those experiences tempered me. And I came back and then I just started picking up jobs. But funnily enough, I found myself with great ease getting booked to play Englishmen in LA. I'd play Americans in England and Englishmen in LA. And like I said to start, I was a sophisticated desert rat. I was approachable, yet I had the gift of the ear. I had a good enough ear to be able to do that.
It does seem that, so you grew up mostly in the U.S., right?
Uh-huh.
So then I assume that you took on an American accent just
Absolutely.
naturally. But your English, your British accent's so natural. Was it
Yeah.
always natural, or did you actually have to work it?
No, even from the days
'Cause-
of the
wow.
Artful Dodger at age 12 or 13 and Oliver Twist, you so consider yourself well in. It was, and that's the Peter Sellers in me. God bless him.
Got it. Hmm.
It's really strange,
Hmm.
but it's not like I flip over and become my B role, even though my name's Hyde. It's not like it's an alter
Mm,
side of me,
yeah.
but it is a completely different mechanism of delivery and attitude and person.
Hmm.
But it's holistic.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's what audiobooks have been so fun for me, because basically when I was discovered to do audiobooks, it just happened to be
Mm.
on a piece of material that required a faculty and an ease of going from English to American. That was the Prince and the
Wow.
Pauper, Mark Twain's Prince and the Pauper, with you poor Tom outside Buckingham Palace, wondering if he'll ever know life like that. And then, what the heck are you
Great.
looking at? Uncle Jerry said to him. I don't know. I'm just looking at the thing. I mean, come on.
I love it, man.
Yeah.
I love it. Let
Yeah.
me ask you a curiosity question very quickly, and then I want to get back to your films. But what's the biggest difference between, besides the obvious, between theater and film? What's the big difference as for an actor, I should put it?
As a foreign actor?
No, just as an
No, foreign.
actor.
Oh, a
Just
foreign
as an
actor.
actor,
You know what? Uh,
because they are like night and day,
I'll tell you
correct?
exactly what it is.
Okay.
And the Brits do it well.
Yeah,
You have to play well with others in
I
theater.
see. Oh,
Yeah. And on
gotcha.
film, you don't. You
Fair.
don't. I mean,
Oh,
yeah, you have to play well with others consistently. Otherwise, the stage manager
I
starts
see.
giving you notes, and you're on tour. So you've been doing this play for 4 weeks, and all of a sudden the stage manager says, "Listen, when you pull that doorknob in Act Two, you're lingering a little bit. You're supposed to leave. Okay, I'm sorry." And yeah, and then
Interesting.
yeah, and you don't want to get policed. You don't want to get busted for doing anything.
Right.
And it's great when you're on stage in a small cast with a lovely part, and the audience
Mm,
interaction is fun. It's a different kind of work altogether.
mm.
But there are English actors who spend their whole lives touring or in plays, and they make a modest living. The economic situation in England is very difficult right now.
Yeah, I
And
can imagine.
most of my dear friend, when we started early, we did a version of Phantom of the Opera in 1989 with the horror version with Robert Englund, became the great Bill Nye, who now is almost an elder statesman. He's almost like an Alan Rickman style, but he has this great faculty of he's just almost comedic and just loose, and he can do anything. And he's in a situation now where he's probably first choice for so many parts, but
Yeah.
he spent a great deal of his early life sort of going on to get along, and in the theatrical world, and I think he still does plays,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's more work. It's
Yeah. 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 No,
yeah,
I
yeah,
get it. I get
yeah,
it. And
yeah,
yeah, you have to be on all the time, in the right in the moment. Well, listen, I got to tell you, the sign of a great guest is every time you open your mouth, it creates 10 more questions for me. So,
well,
but I
I'll give
want to
you
go,
three.
I want to go back to your films. I really do, and maybe talk about Fantastic Four, the
Yeah.
original, the first one.
Well, we're almost there if you want to go chronologically.
However you'd
Chronologically,
like to do it,
because
please.
I've
Yeah.
I got a few breaks. I kind of learned how to play the game a little bit in England
Okay.
in a low risk, low reward situation, where basically means that's what development is about: the ability to make mistakes.
Love that.
My son's in graduate school now at USC at the Annenberg School, which is one of the best in our country,
Mm.
and he just finished his first condensed summer term, and there was a situation that he probably felt he could do better, and went in to the instructor, and the instructor said, "Hey, don't worry, man. This is school.
Wow.
This is what you're here for."
Good for him.
And you know the maybe not succeeding going back to my own situation, maybe not succeeding in the way that I thought that this was going to happen. My early movies in England opened up a path for success deferred later on, which leads me jump cut to 92, which is really only about 5-6 years later. I'd spent most of the time in LA. I'd done these wonderful shows like Hill Street Blues. And I've been lucky. There's, I think, 4 or 5 times in my career where I felt I'd been on the best show in television. And it started when I was 25 doing a couple of episodes of Hill Street Blues, which was just a wonderful show at the peak. Absolutely wonderful. Sort of reinvented cop show as ensemble, because we'd grown up with shows like Columbo and Kojak and stuff, right? And there's still a vibrant community of Hill Street Blues fans. It's wonderful. No surprise. So I'd done a bit, and then went through a bit of a lull, and this Fantastic Four came up. And my manager, who funnily enough was the same, Mark Malice was his name, he was the head of Universal Television casting back in 1979, who discovered, he was one of the 2 people in the room saying to me, "You've never done this before." And he now was, when he joined a management company, he asked me to come in. And he found this part. I'd done a part in 1 or 2 Roger Corman movies. And, you know, it was close to where I lived, and they liked me, and that's fine. So he found Fantastic Four, and he showed it to me. And the breakdown, you know, the description. He said, "What do you think?" I said, "Well, I can play the part. This is, for me, the, you know, intelligent, the smartest person in the room." I go, "Yeah, finally, somebody's given me that chance, but I don't know quite what's the stretching and all that bit." He goes, "Yeah, no, they'll have to handle that." And, you know, I went into it, and rather like I had prepared for the audition for Universal, there was just something about this material. And I worked and worked and worked, and Daniel Day-Lewis would have been proud of me. I knew those lines, and that's all he'll say. Just learn the lines, learn the lines, learn the lines, learn the lines, and then do them in your own way. And it's just simply a result of just knowing it to the point where you can forget it and do it in a way, right? Which,
love that,
you know, yes. Which is sport, business, right. business, you know.
Roger Federer talks about this idea,
yes,
that you know, you train all your life,
yep.
you get the techniques down to an art, and then he would say, then you go out on the court and forget about it
and play.
It's
a wonderful word. It's probably the best. It's probably one of the best 4-letter words in our vernacular. Okay. And I was there, and I played, but I got it right. Now that I'm do a lot of audiobook production, I really respect punctuation, which is very difficult in the world of independent authors, because so many of them need another copy editor too, for overuse of commas and whatnot. But when something is written, it's written, you got to understand that this has been through revisions. This is what they want. This is what they think is the best. Yet they really want you to live it, make it better, solve their problem. And that's exactly what happened in that room of 2, maybe 3 people. Laura Schiff, I think Steve Rabiner was running Roger's company, and Oli Sassoon, who's become a great friend, lives in New Orleans, and I'm in Pensacola, Florida, not too far away. We stay in touch. And I walked out of that room with the job. I just knew it. And the call came a couple of days later. I was dropping my friend Maxwell Caulfield, who's a wonderful English actor, who really went through, shot out of a cannon of fame, and then had to deal with the complete opposite, and rebounded very well. And he's a wonderful, wonderful actor. God, he played the governor of Texas in an episode of Landman. And I was the one, I played the English fop who ran BP. And it was like, Maxwell's far more English than me, Punch. But anyway, I'm taking him, and then when the hell was this? 92? That's like October of 92. I'm taking him to the airport to go to London. He's a friend, drop him up to the airport. We had a good chat. Maxwell's always the kind of guy who has his ear to the casting wire. He says, Punch, there's this part going in the Fantastic Four over at Roger. You've done a Roger Corman film. I've done a couple of them. He says, yes, you should really go after that. I tried to get in on it, but I couldn't. But I think you'd be perfect for it. Okay, good, thanks. And I'm dropping him off at the airport, and my pager rang, okay? And it was Mark Malice's number. And I go, no, Max, can you just sit in the car for a minute? I got to make, yeah, no,
Wow.
of course, of course. And I go and I use a payphone. Hey, Punch, Alex, they've offered you Fantastic Four. And I go, no shit. They go, yeah, okay, great. Yeah, no, we'll be in touch. I said, terrific. Okay, I got to go. Bye. Click. All right, Max. Oh, hey, Max, you know that movie you're telling me I should go up for? He goes, yes. Well, you should. He said, no, no. No, I don't. He says, why not? He says, because they just offered it to me.
That's
He goes,
crazy.
you
Oof.
bugger. Yeah. So
A
it
little
was
synchronicity
a
there,
little
huh?
fun there. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So then,
Yeah.
just maybe briefly about the movie.
Yeah. No, no. So yeah, no,
What
I
was
mean, that's where
stand
the
out
story,
about that? Yeah.
that's where the story,
Yeah.
story,
Started. Yeah.
started. And the way it started just kind of informed as the way that it lived with me for over 30 years now. But
Yes.
upon the making of the film, it was a conventional film, like every other sort of low budget film. It's nice that they can hire actors who can actually do it in one or two takes because they're going to run out of film otherwise,
Mm.
And the heavy load was really on me as the hero of the film, which suited me down to the ground. But I repaid the favor by being prepared and enjoyed the heck out of it. I lived it. I played it. I loved it.
Wow.
I was good for the part. The part was good for me. So much so that when the film ended, sort of sat in limbo for several months, I immediately pivoted to promotion because I knew that we needed to
Mm-hmm.
find to reach the fan base.
Mm-hmm.
So within no time, armed with some publicity stills from Roger, because Roger and his company were very good in soft dollars. I can't give you any money for airfare, but I can give you 1,000 photographs. And so I have, and so I'm
Yeah.
signing photos at the
Mm-hmm.
comic book stores, Jim Hanley's Comic Book
Mm-hmm.
Universe in New York City, or going to comic book
Wow.
conventions. And that summer probably did half a dozen. And some of those visits still live on because the kids, the
Yeah.
8, 9, or 10-year-olds who came with their folks are now 35, 40
Mm-hmm.
year old people who remember that film, the trailer being shown. I remember seeing you and you had the props, and I see him sometimes at conventions. And now, of course, and then of course the history of the film, and it's well documented in 2 episodes in my book, is the making of it, and then the aftermath. And the aftermath is far more interesting in a way because the film was denied its proper place in in um, in release at the time by never being released, which gilded it in sort of this aspic goodness that
Yeah.
it just kept on getting better and better in age, fueled, of course, by the fact that the Fantastic Four as a filmic property was a very difficult property to satisfy the filmmakers and the fan base, which only made our film kinder and gentler in
Interesting.
the experiences of people, so that when it all came out, and then people say, I've seen your film. It's bootleg. It was a pretty
Yeah.
scrappy version of an old VHS, but man, you guys were great. The special effects and the thing was, I mean, of course, it was no, but you guys, there's something there. And thank you very much. Lovely, lovely, lovely. But there was still not an end game there. And
Yeah, that's crazy. Why did that happen, Alex?
it was one of those very rare occasions. It probably probably happens to screenwriters a lot. You write a good
Yeah.
script about a mob movie or something like that, and Paramount's going to buy it because they're developing The Godfather and they don't want to make a mob movie. So they'll buy your script and say, "Hey, I've just
Yeah.
sold my script. I'm a sold screenwriter," but they didn't produce the movie. That happens a lot.
Okay.
Okay,
Got
yeah,
it.
but not so much with films
Yeah.
because films are expensive. But
Mm.
it was basically a rights play, so that the licensee, a German company, New Constantine, head by a fellow named Bernd Eichinger, who made some good films. He made Name of the Rose. He recognized that Fantastic Four was a property of value. He licensed it at a time from Marvel, where Marvel wasn't sophisticated in the film business at all. And they licensed their property to, in good faith, with the stipulation that a film needed to be in production by a certain time. And that certain
Mm.
time was the reason I was in the room in October of 92, because by the end of the year, the rights would revert
Mm.
back, not if a film was completed, but if
Mm.
a film was in production. And there was no stipulation. So a Roger Corman version in production satisfied the lawyers. The rights stayed with the licensee, who probably had no intention ever of
Wow.
releasing it, but because he'd made this bargain with Roger.
Mm.
Roger was the guy. Yeah, I can do that. because he had his own studio, had his own cameras, and there was really nobody else at the time. And Roger became a partner in this film. And when the German company bought Roger out, Roger relinquished all rights and said, "I'm sorry, but hey, come on, no problem." And we became the unreleased, sort of the infamous unreleased wicked stepchild of Marvel as Marvel grew. And that was such a wrong take, really, as I recently found out. The Marvel people really appreciated, enjoyed what we did.
I mean,
yeah.
Really.
And they were just denied any ownership credit, denied any recognition. And that sort of made some of us in the cast have an axe to grind.
Fair enough.
To feel that we needed to right a wrong. And the wrong was righted, to jump forward 30 years, in April of this year, when a call came from London, Grant Curtis, the producer, saying, "Alex, we want you to be in First Steps. We don't really know. I think there's a Walter Cronkite. What do you want me to do?" Well, there's a Walter Cronkite kind of journalist. I go, "Well, yeah, I can do that." Which is funny, because it's just exactly the same thing 30 years ago when Mark read me the character description of Reed Richards. Yeah, I can do that.
That's incredible.
And they didn't really know anything else, and there was really no script.
Yeah.
Just and it was it was a gift of trust, and I just said, "Well, thank you." He said, "I don't know if this is something that you'd even want to do." I said, "Well, listen, I'll tell you right now. Yes," which is a dreadful negotiating position, because they were calling because they needed me. They needed me to square to right a wrong in their minds, not in our minds. And so the four of us became technically part of the cast, even though it's very difficult to identify us. At least I've got a little scene, thankfully, which they probably felt they had to put in, but it also worked for their story, which I was very touched. But we're part of the publicity of it, and that came to us, and it was very fulfilling, and it really felt like closure.
I love that, man.
Yeah.
And it's still in theaters now, I think. Yeah.
Yeah,
right?
no, they did well with it. It's a big. Look, they delivered the property to its rightful place in Marvel folklore. The fan base loved it, and they have plans for the Fantastic Four to live on and some of their other things. Yeah. So, but we were a vital part of their completing their journey, and that's what you want to be. Yeah. You want to be in, I think, in all things, especially as a parent, you want to instill the desire in everyone you meet, particularly those that you're responsible for bringing up, to want to be a part of something bigger.
Yeah, 100%.
Not to be a one-man show all your life. Be a part of something bigger, Yeah. Go and learn from the best. Go and apprentice and learn the value of the maybe the key to being rich and successful is being poor and unsuccessful for a period of time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, your good grounding, your mother, your father, living outside of Hollywood, all of that is just shining right now, because you're speaking from a completely different place that and maybe this is an assumption on my part, but you're sharing your wisdom, and that's a beautiful thing.
Well, it came. I mean, I'll finish up with this Marvel thing. What they were doing, they were basically hiring me as a contractor and wanting to bring my own tools. They knew they wanted me to build something. They weren't quite sure what it was going to be or where it was going to be.
Yeah. And
that translated into 9 pages of newscaster dialogue on the day, of which they used 2 lines.
Oh,
okay.
My gosh.
But, and I said to them, "Hey, man, come on. I'll work a 16-hour day for you. Just, do right by me in a couple of reasons." Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. And they did. Yeah.
Good, very good. No, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Are there others, and even if they're not, I mean, you've been in some blockbuster movies here, but
big parts in some small parts in some big movies. Yeah.
Yeah, but what else? Maybe one or 2 other.
Yeah, well, I'll give you
that jumped out at you. That really stood out.
Yeah. Well, after that, when was that? 92? No, I'd already done. Well, Pretty Woman was wonderful.
Pretty Woman was
wonderful. That was 89. Julia Roberts appearing like a field of daffodils on a spring day, just boom, whoa, watching something completely natural, beauty, one of a kind. You just knew it at the time.
Okay.
And Richard Gere, in his charismatic, giving, magnanimous best, shepherded by a wonderful old hand, Gary Marshall. Julia walked by us to the set when I was sitting next to Gary doing one of the scenes. She could be big, he said to me, okay? And Gary knew well enough, like all the good directors, to let them alone, just let them do their thing.
Yeah.
And that movie just came out of the gate, and a rare movie. It must have stayed in the theaters for like 30 weeks or something, and just
it was
kept
incredible.
on. It was a very entertaining film. And my oldest son, who's now 35 years old, was born on the day that film was released. And so I'm sitting in the lobby of the Cedars-Sinai, reading the LA Times, reading a pretty angry review of glorifying prostitution. Okay.
Yeah, whatever.
But the root story is Leda and the Swan, which is from the year dot, revised fairly well by George Bernard Shaw in Pygmalion, made into a wonderful seminal musical play of its time in the late 50s, made by Jack Warner, with Audrey Hepburn and, of course, my father as Colonel Pickering. My Fair Lady, updated to the sort of the darker side of Hollywood, circa 1990. And yes, it involved a streetwalker who it was Leda and the Swan, transformation. And, you know, to categorize that film as glorify or just, you know, it was just an angry sort of, and I thought,
okay. I mean, whatever you think about it, it is just what it is. I mean,
it's, I don't know, I think it was an early, like I said, you know, people don't, my dad was kind of cruel, mean when he would say stuff like this, but he said, people don't want to, people get into this business, they don't want to become a film critic, okay? They want to be a director. Oh. So every once in a while, that sort of those teeth show. Yeah. But again, I don't know. I only say that in a long way, just to say, oh, gosh, I thought this was going to be good. I was rather disappointed. And it defied all expectation and became a wonderful example of just excellent management from the studio. It wasn't a film they were nervous about. Gary Marshall's confident handling. And of course, they needed someone, I later found out, to play a romantic foil to Richard Gere. If I had known that going in, I would have, oh my God, how am I, you know, it's not like I'm flexing on the beach. And the romantic foil for Richard Gere involved a polo playing son, who became grandson in the movie, of an industrialist, which served the plot of the movie and the emotional impetus for the hero, which is none other than Richard Gere, to rededicate himself to the magic that was Julia Roberts. And I was the fulcrum. I was the vehicle for that.
Wow.
In like 2 or 3 scenes. And I knew that much. But the studio was a little nervous about it because I think they'd cast somebody who dropped out. But the funny sort of thing was, it wasn't so much the audition for that part, which was down on the lot. They were filming. Gary comes in. And I'd done it the day before. No, it was the first time. They want you to go to the lot. So I'm in a meeting with Gary, and I hear them rap. The bell goes, and say, "Okay, here's the casting director. Here's Gary. Hey, Alex, good. Thanks for coming in. Listen, we don't have much time, but I hear you're great. Let's do the scene. Okay, 3, 2, 1, drop it. Vivian, David Moore. Oh, I like your hat. Come see my horse." And then he goes, "Okay." He says, "Okay, I'm going to really try here. Let's just bear with. Would you dye your hair? Would you dye? I got a lot of dark-haired people. Would you dye your hair? I hear you play polo." And of course, Dory Zuckerman, who was a bit of a friend, she knew that I was a pretty good horseman and that I was a good golfer. And she told him that I played polo because I could ride a horse and swing a club. I mean, come on. They needed to find. I was a problem. There was a problem that I needed to solve.
Got it.
And it was like, you know. It happened so quickly, but you know, I just go backwards in that one a bit because that's what got me the job. But what got me the interest from the beginning was an episode of the Bob Newhart comedy show that I had done 4 months before. I was on a bit of a roll. I'd done a Roger Corman film, not Fantastic Four, it was a fantasy time travel movie, which was fairly recurring theme in my life because I think I live a fantasy time travel life,
Yeah.
which
Amen.
really, I get to put the costume on and be all
Hmm.
sorts of different things, which is
Yeah.
fun. That they had this part called Scooter Drake that Bob wanted to entertain the idea of selling Scooter the Inn. So this New York socialite who had more money than sense, which is a pretty archetypal character, with the one exception that Scooter had a lot of sense, which
Mm.
even made him more wit. So when I would walk in and say, "Hi, I'm Scooter," what do you? No, no, no. I think I'll buy the inn. And oh, really? And so Bob would go, oh, okay, okay, okay. And the wonderful twist at the end of the episode is, you might remember, there were the mechanicals, they would be called in Shakespeare, but there were the three comic relief. There was the great William Sanderson as, "Hi, I'm Daryl. I'm Larry, and this is my brother Daryl, and this is my other brother Daryl." And they would always get an entrance round, and they were a welcome presence whenever
Oh,
they were
gotcha.
there, when they were well timed in the show. And so, I would do the deal at the end of the show with Newhart, and they had these, like, they sent me the script. I'd done an episode of the character introducing him like 6, 8 months prior. No, I mean, not even that long. Anyway, they sent the script, and it was like, I was on page 1, I'm on page 15, I'm on page 30, and it's a half-hour show. I said, "Oh, this is good." And the end of it was Larry, Daryl, and Daryl walk into the room with a big trash bag, and they walk in, and Larry goes, "Scooter, Larry, Daryl, Daryl." And we give him a big hug. And of course, the rich New York
Oh,
socialite with more money than sense knows Larry, Daryl, and Daryl, who were the
that's
mechanicals, the complete opposite, which
oh,
is what
that's
I
too
was
good.
saying about how my environment as a kid, I could step into this,
Yes.
what look, it's a dangerous elitist world, which I've always run away from. I've never wanted to play the rich fop or the rich butt of the joke. I've never wanted that. I just have an abhorrence to that kind of character. But to have the rich friend of the local buffoons was
That's too
perfect.
good. That is
And
too
they saw
good.
that, the casting people for Pretty Woman, who wanted, of course, somebody who could be in that
Yeah.
world of industrialist Michael Douglas, greed is good kind of world, but light, with a light touch.
Oh, that's too good.
And,
Well, that contrast just
yeah,
one of the things that makes it so
yeah,
intriguing, really, or
yeah.
noticeable.
And Dory heard my voice. She looked, "Boy, is that Alex?" And it was one of those things. "Alex, you're either very good or not so good." And that one was okay.
Here we go.
And they said, "Wait," and they asked for the tape.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember my
Yeah.
mom was visiting us, and here's the stage manager, Mom. I said, "Mom, you're driving back to Palm Springs here. Would you drop this VHS tape of the Newhart episode off at Disney?" She
Oh,
loved
that is,
nothing better than that. She had to drive on the lot.
yeah. I gotta ask you about this because when I said in my opening monologue, shout outing to my wife, I'm not sure that I know of another great fan of Murder, She Wrote than her. I
Oh,
mean,
good.
she's watched them so many times,
Yeah. Yeah.
over and over, and she immediately recognized. Can you just maybe just say a
Of
word
course.
about that? This is for you, Jane.
Jane, well, thank you. No surprise.
Hmm.
If Angela would have loved to meet you, just to appreciate your joy of knowing that show. Angela was a great actor manager in the tradition. She owned that Sunday night spot.
Goodness.
She was great to the older character actors who needed to make $10,000 a year to qualify for health insurance. She made sure it was one of the highest paid episodics, and it was a very popular show. And she was the embodiment of not so much giving back, but sharing the wealth.
How
Now,
beautiful is that?
at the same time, she's a very technical, very talented actress, and she expected you to meet her with those technically. She wouldn't disdain, but you might not get
Yeah,
the
this
second
wasn't a
episode.
handout. It
Yeah,
was, yeah.
most people got more than one episode,
Wow.
and that was in the days before CBS demanded, there was a period there where if you were on NCIS, you couldn't do CSI, even
I
if it was a
see.
completely different character. There was just such an attachment to their IP that if
Yeah.
you had acted in a part that almost disqualified you for others,
Oh,
which is
goodness
just
gracious.
absolutely
Yeah. Sorry.
archaic. But with Angela, I did two episodes to two complete different characters. And one was, again, kind of a foppish, a wealthy Ogden Schmesser, like, Bush the third, who's, you're going to be the chairman of Anheuser-Busch? My God, I hope not. And he was like this, you know, kind of, an ADHD guy. Here, play with me,
Hmm.
like Mel Brooks or something. That was fun. And it was great. It was great. I'm good with physical comedy. I like to move like Reed Richards. I'm always looking for the next thing. And then there was another part they gave me, which is just a guy, kind of like the red herring in a plot, but it was their way of saying,
Yeah.
we need you again. Come and help us solve a problem. We need to cast. And it was a lovely show, and it lives on. And it was a classy show.
Yes. Very classy show.
Ron Masak, who played the sheriff, Tom Bosley was in it.
Tom
All
Bosley.
these
That's
lovely things.
right. Oh
And
my gosh.
you look at it, and there's a lot of contract players from New
Yeah.
York, from the day. There's a lot of young actors, some of who went on, and it's a time capsule, that show.
Angela Lansbury, I perceive, was a very lovely woman too.
Yes, yes, easy every time. Yeah, I think she was a public woman.
Okay.
That was very regal in a sense that she owed her success to her fan base. And very interesting with Angela. I think in the Manchurian Candidate, when she was still of an age of an ingenue, she ended up playing. I remember, was it who was the original of uh, Lawrence? Somebody I think played the original Manchurian Candidate, and she was the mother, and she was the
Hmm.
same age as her son, only because she had that
I
motherly
see.
bearing.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Got
John
it.
Frankenheimer film, I think. So again, she had this aura around her that she just you trusted her, but she was a hardworking actress, no doubt about it.
I do think that sometimes when you come across actors, and I put you in this category, I really do that when you act so seamlessly, people don't think about how hard you actually work. It's kind of like, they might even misperceive that, it's so easy for them, but there's a ton of work that goes involved. And I would imagine patience is indeed a virtue in acting that you
Patience
should
with yourself,
with
yes.
yourself and the waiting and the
There's a
whatever it
clock.
is.
Oh well, yeah, the waiting's the
Yeah,
hardest
yeah,
part.
yeah.
Kirk and Tom Petty,
Hmm.
Orson Welles. People say don't, you know,
Hmm.
there's something about Orson Welles said, I act for nothing. They pay us to wait. Things like that. Again, the duality of nature, duality of time. There's a great acting convention of opposites. For instance, if you've driven home blind drunk, and the scene is you've driven home blind drunk, you're there. As soon as you open your apartment door, you don't stumble like a drunk. You have a moment of sobriety that just completely colors your drunkenness. But it's that moment of sobriety that
Interesting.
that tells the story, you see. So it's the opposite.
Wow.
So when you're playing a scene of despair or desperation, and you see it in Leonardo in The Revenant, in Tom Hardy when he plays these wonderful lead roles, you see a person completely at ease in a moment of abject terror, right? And
Mm.
when I'm reading an audiobook, they say that the more the action speeds up in the car chase, just to make sure you stay measured,
Wow.
because it's the experience of the listener or the experience of the audience that is on the car chase. And by not challenging them to keep up with the pace, you're enabling the audience to experience it more. Look at the car chase scene in The French Connection, which is it's probably in film school 101. And okay, today, first day, welcome class. We're going to watch the car chase in Brooklyn from The French Connection. Billy Friedkin, okay?
Mm.
Frenetic, frenetic, frenetic. But Gene Hackman lives through that car chase. Yes, of course, he's sweating, but he's always knowing where he is. He's not panicking, right? So that
Mm-mm.
wonderful convention to understand the the duality, the yin and the yang, which is a great Chekhov technique. Michael Chekhov, who was I think the nephew of Anton the Chekhov, the great Russian dramatist, was an acting coach. Stanislavski-ish, sort of same kind of route, but would deal in atmospheres was his thing. And to understand and create an atmosphere, you're either gathering information, or you're protecting it, or you're defending against it. And then there's these sort of physical manifestations that they use. And Clint Eastwood was a great, and Steve McQueen were great adherents to this technique. And when you watch a Clint Eastwood film, we talked about Dirty Harry, Clint Eastwood just looks. He never moves.
I know. It's
incredible. Yet there's such atmosphere just in the. You can actually do a thing where you can gather with your eyes. I can look behind you now and bring you in. Yeah.
I learned a lesson, and I want to hear about this as you just mentioned it with Clint Eastwood. So many years ago, my wife and I, we were actually in the Air Force station out in Travis Air Force Base, which is Northern California. We heard about Rosemary Clooney performing in San Francisco, and we were both Rosemary Clooney fans, primarily because of the White Christmas and all that sort of thing. But my wife was just dying, so we went to see her, and this is my point. We went in there, and I think she was already, up there, and her health was a little bit. And I remember she stood in front of the grand piano, never moved even once, had the mic stand in front of her. But Alex, I've never been so entertained in my life.
Yeah.
How does that happen? What is happening there that makes you just, I mean, she never moved. I don't think she could move very well.
When you're lucky enough to be in a live performance, must have been Elvis. A lot of times, I was a great Tom Petty fan. The clinical perfection of their sound.
Yeah.
And artists like Bob Dylan, they channel something far greater than themselves.
Okay.
And indeed with Petty in the same sort of reclusive way. A friend of mine was his second guitar player for about last 15, 20 years, Scotty Thurston, wonderful talent. Scott was great because he knew how to survive in that environment, which really meant, don't come back after the break and say, hey, I've written some songs. No, that's not what you're doing here. It's very clear. I met Petty once. I was a great fan of his work. He kind of spoke to me and a lot of people at the same. I was starting out, and his sort of messages of the waiting and just, it's good, just American rock and roll, but just something I felt that I was tapping into something greater, and that he was delivering something greater in a way. He would go into his room in Malibu, and he'd call it was like going fishing. He would just sit there and he'd wait. Sometimes he gets a bite, and sometimes sometimes it's a big one, and sometimes it isn't. Okay. And I think that he probably was never more alive than when he was performing. And in the last tour, he pretty much killed himself. He was on the road for 6 months, making sure that his bandmates were covered.
Oh, goodness.
Worked hard. And I was at that last show at the Hollywood Bowl, because I always went when they were in LA. And I came back, and my wife, Shelley, didn't come with me because it was a $300 ticket. This is friends and family.
I'm hearing you.
And I knew it was just a wonderful show. They played I knew all the songs, of course, and so did most of the audience. Some ones you wouldn't expect. And I came back that night, and she said, how was it? And I go, it was great, but I swear to God, Kevin, this is what I said to her. I have a feeling I've seen my last Tom Petty show.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
And she goes, really? Why? I go, well, I mean, it was $300. And I don't know. No, probably not. And 2 weeks later, he was dead.
That's unbelievable. Wow.
And there was something there.
Yeah.
That made me, who was one of his greatest fans, just verbalize that.
Yeah.
And it was just extraordinary. And it wasn't that he was probably just, he was giving so much of himself, but again, being channeled, something gave him, he had the hips, he had the back, he was shooting himself up. I mean, and it's to be, I was a part of that night. And it was
Wow.
impactful, as you can tell.
Yeah. That's very, very powerful. And I can honestly say I pay attention to those things. Like, for instance, I've had some opportunity to go into a recording studio and record. And I remember an engineer or producer, somebody told me, we just started talking about this idea. And again, I'm not an accomplished musician or anything like that, but just to happen to be around some very interesting people who knew the business well. And he started talking about how you can transfer your energy onto tape. And I remember going,
Wow.
what do
Yeah.
you mean? I mean,
Yeah.
but it's true. It's true. And I don't know how or why it happens, but it's that same thing with Rosemary Clooney. It's the
Yeah.
same thing that you expressed with
Sammy
Tom
Davis
Petty.
Jr. had it.
Sammy Davis Jr. is another one. Just
Greatest entertainer anyone will ever see.
I'm going to
I mean, I
have to
never saw
agree with you.
Elvis.
Yeah,
I never saw Elvis, but
don't
Sammy.
don't say Elvis. I might say Michael Jackson, but I would certainly
Yeah.
agree with
Well,
you on Sammy Davis. No doubt
Sammy
about
Davis did
it.
it till he was
Incredible.
70. He did it till he was
Oh,
70 years old, for God's
oh,
sake.
oh, he was
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah. I got to know him a bit from the
Did
early
you
up. We had
really?
mutual. Yeah, I was up at his
Yeah.
house. He was a great gambler. We watched the Super Bowl with him. He was happy that day because the Redskins won. But yeah, no, it was just, wonderful. There was
No,
one
he
thing
really did.
I
Yeah, yeah.
wanted to say more about,
Please.
just a testament to Petty. I just read something recently through the Tom Petty fan group that his first producer, I think it was Denny Cordell, I think was his name, might have been an Englishman, a bit of a slippery guy, but he was the first one to back Petty on Gone Gator Records, I think was what they called the label. And they ended up splitting up contract and all that bit, and MCA signed him. But they said when they were making the first album, which did not hit, it became popular later, that right in the middle of the recording session, according to the story from Petty, they stopped and Denny said, "Tom, here, I want you to come somewhere with me." And Denny took Tom to an art gallery.
Hmm.
And Tom had not really been in an art gallery. And it was a traveling exhibition. As honestly, he's looking at Degas or Monets or Renoirs. And he goes, "Hey, man, this is cool. Yeah." And Denny Cordell said to him, "I want you to put this
Oh, wow.
into your music."
Oh.
And Tom said, "What? How the hell do I do that?" But that's exactly what you're saying. Understand that you are so talented and that you are clued in some dysfunctional save yourself way, that your river of forgiveness is wide and strong enough that when you're in it, you can lead all of us to the place that only music and sometimes film, and sometimes novels, storytelling, only storytelling can do, because storytelling is living.
Yeah.
So think about the algebra
Yeah.
there. Maybe living itself is the story, right? And to say, put that in your music.
That's powerful.
And he says, and I didn't really know what he meant, but yeah, that day helped him, he said. Isn't that neat?
It's incredible. I love to hear
Yeah, well,
that.
that's what you're talking about. And this is
I am talking about
this
it.
effortless quality that you talk
Yeah.
about. It's a result of a lot of things, not necessarily believing in yourself, preparing, but, not necessarily feeling that you're prepared. Some people take him, Sean Penn, Daniel Day-Lewis, God bless him, but it's exhausting, the intensity, and then it has to go into it,
I get it.
And I've always felt maybe I might have played it a bit safe, but I always felt that when I was doing it, that it would come easy, and maybe some of my performances could have done with a bit more of an edge, certainly when I was younger, but not so much now. I'm in good shape. I'm hired usually to either I'm the quest giver, like in Nope, I sent the hero on his way by firing him from a job. And I remember it was written in a kind of demeaning way. Jordan wanted everybody to be sort of against the hero. And they were in the opening of the film, like, "Oh, you got it. What are you doing?" They were kicking him. And I said to him, can I mean, this is written beautifully, Jordan, but can I be nice to him? And Jordan said, "Yeah, just show me." And there was just an upward feeling. I was trying to give him confidence. And the lines were, because of course I knew his dad, and, just look, this isn't the right one for you. And this, maybe it's too soon, and all, whatever the lines were, it was feeding the story. but it wasn't done in an arrogant line producer, get out of my set way. It was done
Hmm.
in a inspiring. I wanted to,
Hmm. Yeah,
like,
and
yeah.
I imagine they sensed it from you that
And
you
he
were
let me
trying to
do it.
make
He
it better.
loved it.
Yeah,
He loved it. And I remember when
yeah.
the actress Kiki Palmer came running to join him on the way out. It wasn't part of the scene. She sort of runs by me, and I'm starting to walk away. And I turn back to him and it says, "And give my love to your sister."
Oh,
And that just happened.
beautiful.
And they used it in the movie.
Yeah,
And Jordan was lovely at the end. He basically said, "Thank you." And the producer came up to me. He said,
yeah.
everybody else is so mean to him that what you just did for us is great.
It's such,
you
again
know
that
and that was
contrast.
just my the desire. Like I said earlier,
Wow.
I don't really like to be the mean guy, especially when it looks like I'm in a position of power, like a line producer
But I
or an
think,
industrialist.
yeah, but when you're so tuned in, I think those things they kind of reveal themselves to you. Let me ask you this, Alex, talking to the average person out there, beyond the obvious of don't give up, what do people do with letdowns, failures, maybe even failures over and over through their lives? What do people do with that? I mean, again, I think don't give up is obvious.
Well, yeah, let me just jump in on that.
Please.
I Whenever I hear "don't give up" from people,
Hmm.
acceptance speeches and things like that,
Mm. Yeah, yeah.
I kind of think it's a lost leader in a way,
Mm.
because if you actually look back on your life
Mm.
and you have a rare opportunity to celebrate success in a public way, it's usually a result of learning from failure.
Hmm.
It's usually a result of probably having to let go of something. It's probably a result of having to give up on something. And it might indeed not so much be what you're doing, but the way you're doing it.
Oh,
So
interesting.
when I hear, okay, all you out there, kid with a dream, don't
Get
give
up.
up. Okay, no, no, come on. All you out there, kid with a dream, understand that you are special. And if you want to say, you have been endowed by gifts from our creator, okay,
Mm.
great. That'll get you a
Okay.
good audience. But
Yep.
this is
Yep.
your opportunity just to cast a wide net. Just speak about the inherent power of self, and just say there is something in you that you and only you own.
Mm.
Don't drive yourself crazy trying to find it. Let yourself be delivered. Find it. Go to work. Put an apron on. Go bag groceries when you're 17. Don't get yourself in dangerous situations. Don't let your desperation to succeed in the way you think you need to put you in a dangerous place. Don't give up on yourself.
Mm. There you go. There's a distinction there
Okay.
too. Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that you have to believe in yourself all the time. Just don't give up in that inherent gift of life that we all have. Okay.
Wow.
And know that in this world, for every visible representation of success, that me with this statue, God bless the Academy, thank you very much. This moment, yes, thank you. I represent the work and the hopes and dreams of so many who worked on this film, and countless millions who
Yeah.
haven't, who
Yeah.
who get to wallow in my indulgence in the moment. But your place might not be here, okay? Just like my place might not have been
Oh
here.
man, I love
It
it.
might be, if you want to work in film or TV, then work in film or TV where you are. Go to the newsstand, go to the news
Yeah.
station. If you're at school, go to where they make that stuff. And then if you find yourself in New York or Nashville or Hollywood, wherever it is, great. And, do that.
That's so powerful. I mean, and I'm not just gushing over what you're saying. What you're saying is so true. And I would also attach to that this notion that, if you want to call it success or significance or relevance or whatever you want to call it, it doesn't have to come from, I mean, you're saying it right now. You don't, you can aspire to be the best, I guess. But it's not that, the success isn't always up here. Sometimes it's another level or two down, but the success is profound and it's meaningful. And I guess I feel like there's a nuance between going for the best. I'm not saying there's something wrong with it, But if that's all of it, I mean, and I've heard
Well,
other
you know, I
people.
mean, because
I don't know. I mean, I just feel like sometimes people that that there's some worth in not being number one as well.
well,
That
you're absolutely right. I mean, there's only three places on the podium. And usually the interview for the second or third, they're taking home a medal. They say, naturally, I wish it was a gold, but I'm happy with the bronze. Okay.
yeah,
They have worked just as hard, okay, or
yes, that's
whatever.
right.
And
Right.
look, hundreds of a second might make a difference.
Yeah, yeah,
And look, if you're just going to look at it practically, every
mhm,
parent is deathly afraid when their child says, I know I have an accounting degree, but I really want to be a screenwriter or whatever. Oh my
I want to be
God.
a
Oh,
musician.
geez, don't, And that's the, the,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
gift. The gift
yeah,
I had
yeah.
was that I didn't have something else to fall back on. Otherwise, I'm probably great likelihood that I would have, and I would have found solace, and I would have been a teacher and fine, trying to enable others to pursue a dream that eluded me.
Mm,
But I felt that I didn't have that credentialed life. I sort of strapped myself to the mast of survival, and
mm,
in practical terms, just to I think put a bottom line into what you're saying, to live in this lovely Western civilization capitalist culture that we embrace and abhor both at the same time,
mhm,
to live a life of modest means, modest security, to experience the joys of
mm.
companionship, these things that ultimately
Gosh.
most people will benefit from having. Show business is a great field to do that. And if you're good, if you enjoy cooking and you find yourself on the set of films, you might be one of the caterers. You might be
Mm,
there. And that's hard work,
mhm,
driving your truck.
mhm, mhm,
If you are good at
mm,
organization,
mm,
you might find yourself working in the production office, not as the coordinator, not as the producer, but at age 30 years old as an assistant coordinator,
mm,
or in broadcasting, like our dear mutual friend
mhm,
Betsy. She started out with Barbara Walters as an assistant. What a
mm.
trial by fire. Not only did she live through that, but Mrs. Walters would recommend her for other jobs, which I'm probably pretty sure that she wouldn't do prima facie, like Angela Lansbury. Okay. No, she would never say something bad about someone, but if she recommended you, it meant something. Okay.
Way to go,
And
Betsy.
yeah, and look at her. She's a producing partner for CBS
Hmm.
shows, for
Incredible.
reality, for news programs,
Hmm.
and she's living in New York City. And and then that's enough of Betsy. But
Well, let me ask
it's
you.
the industry. I'm just saying the industry itself has
Yeah,
very
yeah,
many points of entry.
yeah. There you go. There you go. And in a nutshell, winning can come in many ways.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not just that one thing that you think about that you need to get there. And again, I get it. The aspiration to be a superstar. I get it. It's just, I don't know. You have to, you know, whatever. I mean, that goes in sports and everything else. So
I mean, there aren't that many, and that's usually
yeah,
because you
that's
get you
true.
get you get you get lucky when you're young,
That's true.
and if you manage it,
Yeah,
you can either become a Tom
yeah,
Cruise or a Charlie Sheen.
yeah. Well, there you go. Listen, would you please just share a little bit about your book and maybe any projects coming up? I'd love to
Thank you.
just hear a
Sure.
little bit more about
Right.
that.
Well, thankfully, the Fantastic Four first steps in my small but meaningful contribution to them has reminded people who are interested that I'm around, and fortunately, I have a
Hmm.
couple of nice offers to play significant parts in independent films next year, and of course,
Love
it's
it.
going to take them a little while to put all the finishing touches together, but they're now sort of looking at me as an ingredient to their projects from the beginning, whereby I mean now by having me
Hmm.
attached, it has value to them. And that's something that
Yes.
that comes around fortunately every once in a while. But so that's nice, but it's also a reward for just sort of, being in the game. But the great achievement of my life, storytelling wise, was compiling my memoirs, my Hollywood stories, my in the trenches 40 years in the business, my life in film and TV, and I've titled it "In the Volume," which is
Hmm.
in a term for digital filmmaking, for motion capture. It's akin to "Are you in the shot or aren't you?" Which no, you Alex, you're not in the shot, so just stand over there. Okay, fine. Didn't really matter because it was just light reflected onto film. But Alex, you're not in the volume. So we need you to stand outside of the volume because the volume is what sucks up the gigabytes of data when you're doing motion capture. And I learned that on my little part in Tintin, which was Spielberg's first venture into motion capture when I was helping Simon and Nick and Jamie Bell in the scene. I had done my bit, and there's a reverse angle. You know, you're on. Here's close up on Kevin, and now close up on Alex. When it's close up on Kevin, Alex stands behind the camera and gives you an eye line, so you're not in the shot. But for motion capture, you need to be off the court
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you're sucking
You're
up data
sucking up data.
because you
Yeah.
got silver bells on you, which is something
Boy,
I've always wanted to wear silver bells.
yeah.
Anyway, so I just thought "In the Volume" was a wonderful
It's
phrase for the life of
beautiful.
an actor, you know,
What a
and
metaphor, too.
like in the arena. And
Hmm. Yeah.
so it's a great. I was able to reflect on my life, and because of IMDb, thankfully I could go through with a fairly accurate chronology of where I was and when, and I had a great recall of memories like the running around the Olympic Stadium in Athens, spending a week as a Navy flyer and Top Gun for TV on the John F. Kennedy,
Goodness
and
gracious.
sitting with Stephen, waiting for the sun to set in Alamosa, Colorado, because the two star of the shot was 93 million miles away, and they had about 3 minutes to get it directly on the horizon, or else they were going to come back the next day, which is what exactly said. And then we're under the gun. We're filming it. Junior, count to 20. And I put my hand up, and he said, "Oh, great. Hold that." Right. And that's in the movie. And it just happened,
Wow.
and things like that. And wonderful moments that, mean nothing in one sense. Oh my God, really? That's such a small agents. And so, wait, why are you doing that? But it means so much developmentally and
Yeah,
philosophically
that's right.
because they are the peak moments, rather like we speak about opposites, the peak moments of attaining the peak, the heights, the moments are not valued by how long they last in real term, but how long they last in experience wise, metaphorically, right? Rather like
Yes.
a mountain climber who spends 40 years of his life perfecting his ability to travel to 30,000 feet, which he's going to do with a bit of luck, maybe 4 or 5 times in his life. But those are going to be the pictures that are hanging in his living room. Okay.
Yes.
And so I was able to use these little bits like Indiana Jones, like, um, uh, you know, the small parts in big movies and use them as launching points to tell the story. And the story, of course, because I wanted to and I owed it to myself, is to be as genuine as I could be and to be reflective and talk about the life of and including struggles. And
I
then there's a
love that,
wonderful
man.
thing when it was a wonderful thing with hindsight and nostalgia. Those stories always are better than when you had to live through them. It's really
As
not
they
that
should be.
bad.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, no, as they should be, honestly. Yeah.
and of course the sort of the main the middle part of the book is 2 episodes about the Fantastic Four and its aftermath, and I think one of the episodes is titled "Print the Myth" because
Mhm.
when the reality becomes the myth, you print the myth. It's an old sort of Western adage
Yeah.
from publishing, and so I've lived this rather, is it a mythical life? I mean, my experiences are the stuff of archetype, are of myth. It's a hero's journey. And I was able to sort of put it down, warts and all. And I'm very, very proud of it, very satisfied because I don't really have to live with it anymore. I can
That's
fondly,
beautiful.
I can fondly share it
Yeah.
now.
Well, I
It's a
think,
good book. I enjoy it. It's not a celebrity tell all. It's not
yeah.
famous person. It's a guy who, like you say, whoa, your wife knows, yeah, well, murder show. Oh yeah, oh Hill Street, or whoa, oh my gosh. And after all, I go, whoa, it's an entertaining journey. And I think my
Yeah.
life is an entertaining journey. Hopefully, with more to come.
No, I absolutely. And I'll tell you, there's something beautiful about a movie star, if you will, who also, listen, when meet somebody that when I know somebody and they went somewhere and they met so and so, I'm telling you, the first question out of my mouth is, are they a good person? That's the first words out of my mouth. I want to know if they're a good person. And so listen, so where two more questions. One, um, uh, about your audio production.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about that. Are you producing audiobooks or
Mm-hmm.
is this primarily for you
No, no.
as a narrator? Okay.
It started with me doing a few books, but it was at a
Mhm.
time.
Oh, you got a great voice.
Well, thank
No,
you.
you really do.
Half English, half American, and I read well, and
Hmm.
I again, my ability to read and speak was discovered at a very early age, and so
Yes.
I'm thankful for it. It's a gift that I'm happy to share in terms of. So I narrate. I've started out narrating, but it was at a time, what 14 years ago, when the audiobook business was becoming a big thing,
Hmm.
and Audible had this backlog of titles, a lot of them classics. And I
Hmm.
immediately was hired to do a few of those, and by producers who were overworked. And I said to the one in particular out of Maine, I said, "Look, I'm in Hollywood. I can swing two cats. One, I can find a very good
Hmm.
narrator, and I can find a very good engineer with a sound studio who's hoping to make his hit record, but it needs to pay the bills."
Love
And
it.
he says, "Okay, let me give you 6 books to produce." And we produced them,
Oh
and they were
my.
great. And then I got another 6 and another 12. And I've, in a 40-year acting career, I've produced 2 independent movies. And in a 15-year audiobook
Oh
career, I
my.
produced 500 audiobooks. I'm going
Oh
to stick with
my.
that. Yeah. Well, I love producing, as you can tell, in the Reed
Hmm.
Richards kind of way. I don't necessarily like solving problems, but well, the puzzles. I'm not a puzzle guy, but I like solving problems. And that the trouble with that is when you get bored, you create your own problems. So I try to stay busy. But yes, Punch is my middle name, and I was able to use Punch Audio finally because I didn't use it professionally. Universal thought it was
Hmm.
too comedic, and so that Alex was fine. Alex Hyde-White's got an A and an X and a hyphen, and you can find me online if you can spell it. But if for independent authors, for storytellers out there, that I bet you a lot of your audience are people of who either want to share their story or who
Yep.
have a story to tell. Who let me take a moment to encourage them
Love
to
it.
do it. That when it comes time to either voicing it yourself or wanting me to do it, or maybe even better, find you the right voice. We
Yeah.
do that, and we really are good with independent authors,
Yeah.
which runs a wide gamut because you're dealing with human beings sometimes at their most raw and most vulnerable because their baby, whether it's a nonfiction or a fantasy or
Hmm.
a risque or whatever it
Yeah.
is, it's them, and they're sometimes can be that need some encouragement. So the audiobook business has really enabled me to be in the author satisfaction business.
Oh, love that author satisfaction business. Well, I don't even think I know that a person with your background and as a storyteller, it's very apparent that you're a storyteller, and and all of that, you bring something I think different to the table when it comes to audiobooks, and that
Yeah,
is as a producer,
yeah,
as a coach, as a director, to
yeah,
say, here's where I would recommend you go or whatever. So, Alex, where can everybody,
absolutely.
please, where can
Well,
everybody find you? I
thank
will
you.
put it all in the show notes and everything, so it'll all be there, but I
Yeah.
still would like to invite you to share anything else, and anything else that I didn't ask you about, feel
Uh,
free to share.
oh no, no, thank you. I think we touched on just about everything. The the deliverance to modern day Marvel at the peak of their
Mhm.
powers, and starting out at sort of the discredited Marvel that I started out with is just the epitome of a life's journey. And
100%.
in that instance, the don't give up aspect is appropriate
Hmm.
because because it's something that it's like having I had that arrow in my quiver, uh, and I was very hesitant to use it. And at the end of it, I didn't really have to use it because it was never really a war, and and peace
I
was
love that.
declared.
Yeah, I
So
love
I'm
it.
not on
Yeah,
public record saying Marvel
100%.
is. I'm
Yeah.
not. I haven't said
Uh,
disparaging things. And so
Good
don't
on
give
you.
up. Just don't give up on having faith
Yeah.
that it'll all work out
Yeah.
eventually. Better, better with him than here with me. For those of you out there, you know who wrote that. But so yeah, no, that's great. AlexHyde-White.com. I got the .coms. Punch Audio.
Punch audio.
Those
Okay.
are really it. You look for Punch Audio, audiobook producers. That's me.
Mm-hmm.
Punchandroll.com, punchaudio.net, but that's too in the weeds. Look, thankfully,
Amazon, right? They can find
Amazon,
your
yeah,
book,
Audible, Amazon. There's a bunch of stuff. Oh yeah, my book
your
in the
book,
volume. Yeah, it's wherever. Where,
100%.
like we say in the sign off in the credits, wherever books and audiobooks are sold, and that reduces me to the multitudes of people who have work and are promoting it. So that's the world we live in. I'm just thankful that having started out in really sort of old fashioned stage analog film and television when in my early days to have now gotten to a point of being in the volume where there is access digitally to absolutely everything within a moment's reach, and people such as yourself, none who are more thorough and enjoyable to speak with. Let me say that. Um, when we speak of the aspect of being part of something bigger, that's what I enjoy,
Yeah.
and I've been very fortunate to be able to
Yeah.
share these stories now in a moment's notice
Yeah.
because of this access that we all have
Yes.
that must be respected. And I think we're now learning with the generation or two of the inherent dangers into letting this access lead you, letting this access be your primary source of entertainment,
Yeah.
dare I say inspiration. And it has an inherent danger. And that's part of the story too.
Yes, it is.
So
Yes, it is.
read a
Read a
book,
book.
listen to a book, look at some of the old movies if you need
That's
them. And
right.
I got 5 of them that I base my chapters on. Look at Heat.
Yeah.
Look at Last of the Mohicans.
Oh,
Look at
oh,
Patriot Games. Look at On the Waterfront. Look at The Godfather. Look at
Patriot
these.
Games. That's extraordinary.
Patriot
Yeah.
Games is an
Oh,
extraordinary film.
whew, so
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Well, listen, I am not shy to the friends around me, to my wife, to anybody else. I have no problems with being starstruck. I am starstruck with you, but I'll tell you what, as a believer in God and these other things, the goodness is more important to me. And you have absolutely, I'm starstruck, but you have exceeded my expectations as a
Well,
human
thank you.
being.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being
Well,
on Grow Yourself.
the human spirit is the most powerful. It's really the only thing we have that will
Hmm.
never leave us. And it's good to hear you say that. And
Mm.
that's not code for anything. I think
Nope.
that's belief in a good thing.
Yep.
There's a big wide world, and the more peace we can have in this world,
Hmm.
then maybe it'll be helpful for all of us to move forward and in the daily struggles that we
Mm.
all must
That's
have.
right.
And
We all
so,
must
God
have.
bless you
Thank you.
for keeping the faith, Kevin. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you very much. And keep going and folks, keep following this man. There's more to come. Thank you so much, Alex.
My pleasure.